So to solve quadratic equations with perfect squares, most of it is nothing new. You already know how to isolate a variable that is squared. So now we're just going to solve equations that are quadratic. Now in this problem we have 9 times r squared, and that's equal to 121. So what is the first thing that I'm going to do? This is a problem that you should be able to do. What's the first step in getting the r's solution? Josie? We're not going to square root with both sides. That is a very common mistake. And in this problem, if you do square both sides, you will get the right answer. But in general, that's not always going to be the first thing you do. So, Michael?
You could divide it by 9.
I'll divide both sides by 9. Because when a number is next to a letter, what am I doing? Because when a number is next to a letter, it means that you are multiplying. So we'll divide by 9, divide by 9. And we're going to keep that as an improper fraction. So we have r. My board's been misbehaving already today. So we have r squared is equal to 121. Now, when you have r squared, what's the opposite of squaring something? Square rooting. So we are going to square root both sides. So we have the square root of r squared. Square. So we have the square root of r squared is equal to the square root of 121 over the square root of 9. So what is the square root of r squared?
R.
And that's going to be equal to, what's the square root of 121? 11.
3.
Now here's the trick. I will concede that 11 over 3 is going to work. But what about negative 11 over 3? Let's double check. We're just going to double check to prove that both are going to work. So I'm going to go with 9, and instead of r, I'm going to plug in 11 over 3. So we have r, which is better known as 11 over 3, but now we're going to try the negative version, okay? So we have negative 11 over 3, and we're going to square that. That's equal to 121. We're just seeing if this works. So if I square negative 11, what is negative 11 squared? 121. So we have 9 times 121 over, what is 3 squared? 9. So, and this is all equal to 121. What is 9 divided by 9? 1. So we end up with 121 is equal to 121. So did the negative version work? Yes. So today we're really going to have to concentrate on putting that plus or minus in the right place. So the correct answer for this problem will end up being plus or minus 11. This thing is driving me crazy. 11 over 3. All right. So moving on to the next one. Yes?
Is there like a trick to know when there's going to be a plus or minus?
We're going to be talking about plus or minuses for the next 5 problems. So re-ask that question if you still have it after the next 5, okay? Okay. All right. So we have the binomial x minus 3, and we're going to square this. So, and it's equal to 100. So what are we going to do to both sides to get the x all by itself? Now, right now, the x is embedded in a binomial that is being squared. So we're going to have to get rid of that squared first before we can touch anything inside that parentheses. So the opposite of squaring is square rooting. So I'm going to take the square root of this side, square root of the other side, What is the square root of the binomial x minus 3 squared? X minus 3. And this is going to be equal to 10. Now here is the trick. Here is the trick. X minus 3 can equal 10. I agree. What else could x minus 3 equal? It could equal negative 10, couldn't it? Because if x minus 3 is equal to negative 10, we square it. Negative 10 times negative 10 is positive 100. So x minus 3 is going to be equal to plus or minus 10. In other words, every time you square root something, you're going to have to put the plus or minus in front of the result. Every time. Hold on. We're not done yet. So we have two problems here. We have the positive problem, where the sun is shining. When it rains chocolate milk. Oh, it would be wonderful. You just have to tilt your head open and open your mouth, get chocolate milk. Excellent. And in the positive land, x minus 3 is equal to 10. In the negative world, it's always snowing and raining, coldy and windy. Like yesterday. So we have x minus 3 is equal to negative 10 in the negative world. So we have two separate problems we have to solve here. So what am I going to do to all parts of this problem to get the x by itself? Add 3. So I'm going to add 3, add 3. I'm going to add 3. I'm going to add 3. So x minus 3 plus 3 is just x is equal to 13, because 10 plus 3 is 13. In the negative land, we have x minus 3 plus 3, which again is x, obviously, is equal to, what is 10 plus 3? Sorry, what is negative 10 plus 3?
Negative 7.
Negative 7. So there are your two answers. And again, the trick here is after you square root something, the result of that square rooting is going to have a plus or minus in front of it. And then you'll have to break it apart into positive and negative lands and worlds. All right. So let's try another one. Yes. So we have 7 times the binomial x plus 8 squared is equal to negative 28. We can't square root things until that piece that's getting squared is all by itself. So what am I going to do to both sides to get that binomial by itself? Michael?
Would you either divide or subtract 7? You need something with 7.
Which one is it, buddy?
Divide.
It's divide. Okay. When you have a number next to something, it means multiply. Okay. So we're going to divide by 7, divide by 7. So 7 divided by 7, that cancels out. So we get x plus 8 squared is equal to negative 4. At this point, your hackles should be raised. You should know something is not quite right in Denmark. So what are we going to do to both sides? Something's rotten in Denmark, yes. You just came from the Shakespeare Festival. You should know what I'm talking about. All right. We're going to have to take the square root. Square root. Square root. What is the square root of x plus 8 squared?
X plus 8.
You can't have a square root.
Ah. What is the square root of negative 4?
Nothing imaginary.
You can't. It's imaginary. It's 2i, or 2 times imaginary. The square root of negative 1. You cannot have a negative square root, or you can't have a negative number inside the square root, because I challenge you to think of one number multiplied by itself that equals negative 4. Appropriate silence. Negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4. Positive 2 times positive 2 is positive 4. You can't do it. So in this case, this is illegal. Border Patrol is coming after you. So we have no solution.
Guys, it's not even that.
Just leave it.
Just for the record, I am very much pro immigration reform. All right. Moving on. It'd be that's right. You could, but we're gonna get into imaginary numbers later. So this is just gonna be no solution.
Would you still have to solve it in order to I?
Nope, just no solution. All right. Number four has two different ways of doing this problem. We're going to go through it the traditional way that we've been talking about since Thanksgiving. The other way is going to be the entry into the idea of completing the squares. But we're going to do the first way to show you the answer, and then I'm going to show you the second way to prove to you that what we're about to do tomorrow is going to work. So we have a quadratic.
Yes, we do.
How do you solve a quadratic?
Subtract. Well, first you gotta get it to equal 0, then you factor it.
We need to get it to equal 0, and then we have to factor. So what will I do to both sides to get it equal to 0?
Take away 16.
Minus 16. Take away 16. So subtract 16 from both sides. So what is 25 minus 16? So we have m squared minus 10m plus 9 is equal to 0. We need to factor it, so go ahead and factor it, and you get
M equals 9 and 1.
m does equal 9 and 1. But in factored form, what is this?
Minus 9m minus 1.
Because negative 9 times negative 1 is positive 9, and negative 9 plus negative 1 is negative 10. And then as you very astutely figured out, Harper, the answer is going to be this m is going to be positive 9, this m is going to be 1. So we know the solution is going to be 9 and 1.
Yeah, we're done.
Now, I'm going to show you another way of doing this. And the reason behind this is it's really an integral part of completing the square, which is what we're doing tomorrow. So I should at least show you this process today. So I'm going to clear this off. Again, you know the answer is going to be 9 and 1. So this time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a closer look at this binomial, or trinomial rather. And I notice that that trinomial can be factored in its own right. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to factor this trinomial. Not only is this a factorable trinomial, but this is a square binomial, isn't it? Because negative 5 times negative 5 is positive 25. And negative 5 plus negative 5 is?
Oh, yes.
So I know this can be factored as m minus 5 squared is equal to 16. Now it looks like this problem here, doesn't it?
Yeah.
OK. So then, what do I need to do to both sides to get it equal? OK, so I square root. I square root. So what is the square root of m minus 5 squared?
M minus 5.
What is the square root of 16?
Plus or minus 4.
Plus or minus 4. There you go. And that is going to be the one hard part in today's class. Happy days. So we have two problems. We have the positive problem, m minus 5 is equal to 4. And we have m minus 5 is equal to negative 4. So what am I going to do to all parts here? I'm going to add 5. So I have m is equal to 9. M is equal to 1. I get the same answers. So we have two options on solving this. And again, this is how we're going to have to solve things tomorrow, because tomorrow, instead of having perfect square answers, we will not have perfect square answers.
Well, that is not going to be a happy day.
Oh, it's not too bad, but it is more complicated. All right, finally for number 5. Number 5, this one is a little more complicated. We're throwing a lot of things at you at once. So what are we going to have to do to get this piece right here by itself? Because we can't square root it until we do that, right? So add 4. So I get 6 times x plus 9 squared is equal to 36. Now what will I do, Michael?
Divide by 6.
Thank you. I will divide by 6. Divide by 6. So I get x plus 9 is squared is equal to
6.
not 6, plus or minus 6. Okay. Actually, no, it's not plus or minus 6. Oh my goodness.
One more step.
You tricked me. All right. It's just 6. And the plus or minus comes into play when we square root things, which is what we're about to do. So how am I going to get the squared out of here? So take the square root, take the square root. So what is the square root of x plus 9 squared? And that's going to equal
Plus or minus the square root.
plus or minus the square root of 6. All right. So what am I going to do to both sides now to get the x by itself? Subtract 9. So I'm going to subtract 9, subtract 9. Now here is going to be the somewhat tricky part. I am not going to take out my calculator and find the decimal approximation of the square root of 6. I'm going to keep the answer in simplest radical form. So what I'm going to end up with is I'm going to end up with the whole number, -9, plus or minus the square root of 6. I can't do anything with that. I can't combine the -9 and the square root of 6. So x is just equal to -9 plus or minus the square root of 6.